back to my channel. This is Cyan of @perceivegrace, both on here and Instagram. Today we are setting up February in my reading journal, and this month's theme is cowboy romance. I'm very excited by it. I am in my B5 size Archer and Olive reading journal as always. This art is from Charming Pixie Art on Etsy. I will link things down below. I love the washi tape collection I was able to gather for this theme too. I think they're super beautiful. Let me know what you think in the comments down below of this theme. Let's get started, and I'll get into my TBR later in the video. First up on my fiction TBR, in no particular order, is When Stars Light the Sky by Elizabeth Camden. This is book 2 in the Women of Midtown series. I read book 1 last year and it was average for me, but it was more of a character reason than anything else, so I think I'll be fine with this as well, as long as I enjoy both the FMC and the MMC. I think the main trope is marriage of convenience, and it is historical romance, and so the historical part takes place during World War I. This next one is So Into You by Kathleen Fuller. I've never read anything else by this author. It looks like she writes mostly Amish romances, but this is published by a Christian publisher. The main romance trope is opposites attract, and the MMC is a reformed bad boy, and the FMC is a reclusive artist, is how it's described. This is a recent release. It released in December. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm kind of going into it blind, not really paying attention to the summary on the back of the book. Let me know if you've read this, but I think the cover is so cute. Then we have Switch and Score by Dulcie Dameron. This is one of 2 books I have on my February TBR by this author. I'm very curious about her. I have not read her yet, but I've heard amazing things about her. This is part of the multi-author hockey romance series Dating a Denver Dragon, and in this one the main tropes are animosity to more, rivalry, Yeah, so it looks like an animosity to more rivalry, so maybe rivals to more as well. But I'm excited. Hopefully I enjoy this. I think this book is connected to the other one I have in my TBR that's also released for February, if that makes sense. So I wanted to maybe read this one first and then read that one. But I'm excited and I've heard great things. We have An Overdue Match by Sarah Monzin. This is a new release for February. It releases on February 18th. I was gifted an early copy to read and review by the publisher. And this is about a matchmaking librarian who gets her romance. And the MMC is a tattoo artist. I'm not in love with the tattoo artist profession thing or angle to it, but I'm really enthused by the rest of the plot. And I think there's alopecia representation as well. I've never read a book with that, so that'll be really interesting. And it looks like this is like the beginning of a new interconnected series called Checking Out Love. And just look at that cover. It is so pretty. Next up is the only book I migrated from my January TBR that I did not get to, The Winter Princess by Kira Dominguez, which is book 2 in the Royals of Sandmark series. Book 1 is The Impossible Princess. I really liked that. I gave it 4.5 stars. This one is supposed to be even more romantic, I guess, and I think the main trope as I'm looking for it might be, it's animosity to more is the main trope. I have to read this. This is like my last chance to read this before December of this year, because there's no way in March I'm going to read a book that says The Winter Princess on it, but this has been highly recommended to me and I have to get to it this month. This is my only cowboy romance on this TBR, Remembering the Cowboy by Mandy Blake. It's book 1 in the Blackwater Ranch series. I've read one other book by this author and I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars, but it was a part of a follow-up series to this, like a spin-off. So I wanted to make sure I went back and started this series. So I really don't want to move forward with her other books until I start this one. So I need to get to it, and it made sense to add it to my cowboy romance themed month. And I really like the cover. I think it's super cute. And Mandy Blake writes contemporary Christian cowboy and small town romances. The Dreams We Knew by Rachel Scott McDaniel is another new release for February. It releases on February 25th. I was gifted my copy to read and review, and I read Walking on Hidden Wings last year, which is another one of her 1920s roaring novels, and it was so incredible. These have romance, suspense, and mystery. I think I'll like this one even more based off of the synopsis, and the cover is stunning, and I believe the romance in this one is second chance. The first book had a second chance too, but in a very interesting way, but highly recommend, and I'm excited for this. Then we have The Traitor's Kiss by Erin Beatty. This has been on my physical shelves, like my physical TBR, for years. I got it at Books A Million, I think over or about 2 years ago. It's YA non-magical fantasy romance. I've heard good things about it. I do have the following, like I have the whole trilogy actually, because they were like on sale for like $5 each or something at Books A Million. So I bought them all, but I have not read them yet. I guess I'm just scared to be disappointed, but I have heard in passing through other people who know other people who've read it that it actually is a really decent, clean YA non-magical fantasy romance. So I hope it doesn't let me down. Let me know if you've read it. Then we have The Perfect Rom-Com by Melissa Ferguson. This is also a February release. It releases on February 11th. I'm very excited for this. I've read one other Melissa Ferguson book, Famous for a Living, and I absolutely loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I have not read a book by her since, even though I really should have, but she has a few rom-coms out and she writes clean romance. The cover of this is so pretty. I've already heard great things about it. I'm looking forward to laughing because her last book that I read made me laugh, and I'm very excited. So I'll probably definitely be just buying the physical copy outright and getting to it this month. Next up, I want to read The Lost Rose by Victoria Lynn, book 3 in the Chronicles of Elira, YA non-magical fantasy romance series, Christian fantasy romance series. This released this past November. I wanted to get to it back then, but it is on the chunkier side. It's like over 500 pages, so I needed to be strategic about when I felt like I could get to it. I feel like I am ready just because the author recently released the title reveal for her next book, so I want to get to this before all of that marketing starts coming out for the next one, and I still haven't read this. I wouldn't want that, but ultimately I've been enjoying this series so far, and her fantasy is like a medieval fantasy, so it's low on the fantasy, and again, there's no magic. That second Dulcie Dameron book I was talking about earlier is The Backpack Bride. This releases on February 4th. It is book 1 of the multi-author romance series that's coming out this spring called Give a Bookish Girl a Biker. This was originally not on my radar, but one of the authors asked me if she could just add me to the launch team chat. So I've been keeping up with what they're doing in there and kind of just loosely seeing if I want to get to these or not. I think the cover is pretty. It's linked with the Switch and Score book I talked about. It's Marriage of Convenience. Anyway, I might get to this month and hopefully I enjoy it. This one is Redemption by T. Bell. It's book 1 of 2 so far of the Rising from the Ashes series, and I think this one is a contemporary small town animosity to more romance. I know nothing about this author or her books, but I've been seeing a lot on Instagram about her because I think her second book is about to come out soon. So I've just been seeing a lot of it and I've heard really great things. Some of the reviews were saying there's really good Christian content in it too. So I'm really excited. I think the covers are beautiful. And if I find a new author in this, that would be really amazing. And this was a really last minute addition to this TBR. So hopefully it works out. For my nonfiction TBR, I'm migrating over Your Future Other Half by Rebecca Van Dudeward. It was on my January TBR. I wasn't able to get to it, but I really do want to get to it. It's basically biblical advice for women who are in a relationship, who wish to be in a relationship, or who struggle in an imperfect marriage. So I'm in a long-term 4-year relationship with my boyfriend. I just am interested in reading more about biblical advice for marriage this year because it's kind of increasingly more on the forefront of my mind. This one is the last book I migrated from January, On the Christian Life by John Calvin, a new translation. This is a Crossway edition, and Crossway makes really beautiful books from what I have seen so far. I just think this is so pretty. But this is basically a classic work by John Calvin, and it answers like a fundamental question of what does it mean to live faithfully as a Christian, and it's often like referred to as like Calvin's golden booklet, and I've seen it in a lot of like different types of like pocket-sized booklet formatting. I think I own even another one. But yeah, I migrated this over from January. I want to read it. It's always helpful to read Calvin, and the cover is just so stunning. Next up is David, A Man of Prayer, Man of War by Walter J. Chantry. I'm very interested in reading this. It's basically just the history of David's life, and part of the synopsis or little blurb about it was those who stumble often but who always turn with melted hearts to God for pardon and help will find him a brother for all situations, like find in David a brother for all situations. And that really got to me. And, you know, David wrote the book of Psalms. So I don't know, just like his perspective of prayer as, you know, his life was, you know, a lot of ups and downs. I'm very fascinated by it and definitely want to get to it this month. Last but not least is the Puritans on Loving One Another. I'm about to finish the Puritans on Conversion, which was a part of my January TBR. I'll probably finish it tomorrow and leave it with my January reads. Today is February 1st when I'm doing this voiceover. But this is an anthology of 4 works. So it's The New Commandment Renewed by Ralph Venning, Love One Another by Thomas Manton, The Nature and Principles of Love by Joseph Carroll, and The Holy Exercise of Love by John Ball. I am looking forward to reading this, and yeah, this is the last of my TBR.